Get your, and I agree. See how a lot of these stories tie together? Although one may seem totally unrelated to the next, we're getting a lot of cross-confirmation across the board of different things. That's why I like talking about current events, because we can see on a week-to-week basis how we're moving here. In a world of what could have been, there's hay, which is what I already mentioned. There's sawdust, crushed volcanic rock, even kitty litter that could have been mulched with the oil on the surface of Gulf waters, making it easy for pickup. But the oil industry executives and their confederates in the Obama administration quickly made sure that all the spewing oil would either sink well below the surface, that's the key, or never rise to it, so it could never be vacuumed up or neutralized. That's what they wanted. That's why they're putting the dispersants on there, so that the oil will sink. So we're putting another toxic chemical into the ocean so that the oil sinks so that we can't even get to it now. That's their solution. Worse yet, these international criminals of humanity and life in the Gulf committed their dastardly deed of deeply submerging the floating oil with an extremely dangerous chemical dispersant that would deny all marine creatures oxygen, thus killing them, the marine plant life to boot, as a major underwater currents carry this poisonous oil through the Gulf and into the Atlantic. That's the reality that we're dealing with here. Try to give this mass murder a positive spin. BP spokesman John Crabtree said his corporation had dropped more than 560,000 gallons of this toxic chemical dispersant onto the surface slicks of the oil and 28,700 gallons of the chemical at the subsea wellhead, 5,000 feet below the sea level. I started thinking, when they started doing this, I'm thinking, why are they using dispersants? What good is that going to do? The oil's still going to be there. Now you've just got two toxic things in the ocean instead of one. What good is the dispersants going to do? It's still there. Crabtree's justification for such an insane criminal act that the dispersants would drive the oil well below the water surface, thus keeping it away from coastal shorelines. Oh, that is so great. Let's really talk about sweeping the problem under the rug, literally. Hey, out of sight, out of mind, right? It's the way of the world. That's what the pharmaceutical industry is based on. You got a symptom? Just take a drug. Suppress the symptom. And let the underlying problem fester and fester and fester. Well, yeah, I got to take more drugs now because the problem's worse. Got more symptoms. Maybe I got to take a couple drugs now because I'm having side effects from the first one and the problem's getting worse. And then you end up on the 10 drugs until you're finally dead. Or now you really are a candidate for surgery, which is all by design. It's how the medical system's set up. I've done a whole series on that. Pharmakia, sorcery, which is where we get the root word for sorcery. It's also the word for pharmacy and pharmaceuticals and these types of things. You can find it up on YouTube or at contendingfortruth.com. Anyway, so instead of removing the oil, BP decided to make the oil even more toxic and drive it deep into the ocean where it can never be retrieved, but it will kill all marine life in its path. That's what they're doing. This is absolute, total, satanic insanity. From the Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and the Environmental Protection Agency, Coast Guard, and the Gulf State Environmental Protection Agencies, the message is the same. Quote, "We've never dealt with anything like this before." The Obama administration also conspired with BP to fudge the extent of the oil leak. According to our federal and state resources, after the oil rig exploded and sank, the government stated that 42,000 gallons per day was gushing from the seabed chasm. 5 days later, the federal government upped the leakage to 210,000 gallons a day. Now remember, they report it in barrels of oil. Okay? I'm telling you, gallons of oil. 210,000 gallons a day. However, the Wayne Madison report has been informed that submersibles that are monitoring the escaping oil from the Gulf seabed are viewing television pictures of what is a volcanic-like eruption of oil. Moreover, when the Army Corps of Engineers first attempted to obtain NASA imagery of the Gulf oil slick, which is larger than is being reported by the media, it was turned down. However, National Geographic managed to obtain satellite imagery shots of the extent of the disaster and posted them on their website. There is other satellite imagery being withheld by the Obama administration that shows what lies under the gaping chasm spewing oil at an ever-alarming rate is a cavern estimated to be about the size of Mount Everest. Mount Everest? This information has been given almost national security level classification to keep it from the public, according to news sources. Now, again, I don't have any way of really verifying that. I'm telling you what they're telling you. And I know we're getting a whole lot more truth here than we're getting on the controlled mainstream garbage media. Mandy Joyce, a marine sciences professor at the University of Georgia,